Hey everybody, today we're going to do the Trick or Treat Witch Gnome. Here you'll see me putting together the stands. Some of the gnomes have offset stands, so make sure that you're lining up the slots when it comes to putting them together. I just usually put the slots together or the stands together first because you don't need to paint the bottom piece. Here you're seeing me separate all my pieces by color. I prefer to paint my colors in bulk versus going back and forth between a couple different colors. And so I'm just separating them by the colors that I'll be using for this project here. I think we start with the candy corn. So normally I start with the least amount of color on a project. So this one I'm starting with the orange, and the orange that I use in folk art is the toasted terracotta. That's the best color match. And if you're in my group, you'll see that I color match the folk art to Home Depot paint samples. And so this is actually what I'm using, but for sake of you guys buying paints from Hobby Lobby or Michael's, that's the closest you're gonna come, is the colors that I mentioned here in a folk art brand. Next, I'm gonna come in with the Christmas red, and I'm gonna do the little spider there for the, I think we stick her on the cauldron. I'm not quite sure. Where do we stick that spider? Oh, no, that spider goes on her foot. So then I'm gonna come in with the yellow ochre, and I'm painting her hat buckle, and I believe I come in and I do the middle of the candy corn there with the yellow ochre. And then that one will probably, because it's a medium to light color, it does require 2 coats, even though it's a light MDF. And you'll always see me, not always, but most of the time, you're gonna see me using a magic eraser to paint. So that's what that white thing in my hand is. And you can tell that I go from corner to corner to utilize the entire piece of that magic eraser. And then next, you'll see me kind of give it another quick second coat while it's still wet. And now I'm going to come in with the green. I believe this green is the forest moss. Yes, it's the forest moss, and so that's just the center of the cauldron that I put on there. Now you see me giving a second coat to the orange, which again is the toasted terracotta. And then we're going to go back over the buckles, and probably if I do the candy, yep, I'm going to do the candy corn again, second coat of the yellow ochre. And then it looks like I'm pulling in the cool bisque to do the skin color, but actually I think I looked at the candy corn and realized that I needed to do the top of it. So this is the vintage white that I'm doing for the top of the candy corn. And that is most of the whites that I use is the vintage white. And then I come back in and I will do the cool bisque on the skin colored pieces. And again, you guys can choose any colors that you want. You can make her green, you can make her brown, you could make her purple. Just use your imagination with the colors. You don't have to stick to the exact ones that I use. Next, I'm using the steel gray for her hair, and we do add some detail in the end here when I paint the outsides of her hair to make it look more Halloween-y for me. Halloween's my favorite season, so this one I did add a little bit of details too. Now I'm going to come back in and give the cool bisque a second coat. Now it looks like I'm thinking, oh no, I'm just grabbing the vintage white again to give that one a second coat on the candy corn there. We're going to do the second coat of the gray. I like my colors more solid versus translucent, so that's or opaque. That's why I give mostly second coats on almost everything. Now this color green is the clover truffle, I believe. Let me look. Yes, it's the clover truffle. And so it's kind of almost like a true green. So I'm just going to stripe her hat. And you'll see why I like the magic eraser. Look how fast I'm painting that body, like done in 2 seconds flat. I've learned to get really good at lines like you saw with striping her hat. Sometimes it doesn't work out like I want it to, but most of the time I can get pretty good with it. It's just practice, guys. So now that is the lavender. Let me look at that color. That is the French lilac. And you'll see, I think, I'm not quite sure. I don't remember if I switched to a brush in the middle. Yeah, I think I did, just because I was more concerned about getting the French lilac on the middle of that stripe there. So I did switch to the brush. I'm just giving it a couple coats because this one is a pretty translucent color, and so it definitely needs a couple coats. Look at me, I was pretty brave there in getting that one and not on the French lilac there. Okay, now we're going to move over to the black, and it's just a generic black. I think next time when I mix my colors, I'm going to add some more of the additive to it to give it a thicker effect, because the Home Depot paints that I add the BB Frost to, I like it thicker so it goes on. And I did it off screen, but I just sliced off the top of that magic eraser just so I could use a little bit more of it. And now this is me. You can see I'm coming in. Oh, this is the makeup sponge. So this is the makeup sponge that comes with regular orders that I give to you guys. These are getting hard to find right now. It's October. Yeah, it's October, early October, and they're out of stock. So I've had to switch suppliers. I'm not quite sure how I like this one yet, but I'm just dabbing the edges very lightly. You can see that I dabbed most of the paint off onto my silicone mat there, just to give the edges a little bit of an effect. Now I'm floating the black on the edges of the green. You can see I just dipped it in a little bit of water. I kind of wipe it off on my mat there to give it a little bit of effect so that it doesn't have a solid black in it. And then we just go back and forth, get some of the water off there, and then just give it a couple strokes on the edges. That was me just checking to see where the edges will show up when her hair gets put in place. Saves me a little bit of time on where I need to paint or don't paint once I know all the pieces are in place, because not everything will show. Let's see, what am I doing here? Okay, so now I've grabbed some of the lighter green. What was it? Let's see that color again. It was the forest moss, and I'm just dry brushing it on there to give her outfit a little bit more of a dimension to it instead of it being so flat. You see, I'll go into my paint and then I'll wipe most of it off on my towel over there on the right, and then I just lightly stroke it back and forth and diagonal up and down all around. It just gives it a little bit more of a dimension to and a highlight to the green that we already have down there, so it's not such a flat piece in the end. So now, like I did with the hair, I'm taking the sponge and I'm just dabbing the edges with the black. This one I kind of drag into the middle a little bit, and you can see I'm using my finger just to kind of wipe the process away. I didn't want it too dark, but I wanted it to look, to me, Halloween-y, so I just kind of dirtied it up a little bit. And that looks like I'm just dry fitting all the pieces to kind of see where they're going to go into place. Excuse my head, that was me looking straight over the top. The camera gets the good view. So now when I dry fitted, I noticed that I was missing a little bit right there on her hair. So I came back in with the brush just to kind of give it a full coat so that we could not have any of the wood showing, and then it's all painted. And now I'm peeling the back. If you're new to my kits, I don't use glue. I use an adhesive on the back of all my pieces except for the stands. So I'm just peeling the back so it exposes the sticky side of the kits. And instead of using the glue, we just peel and place. Super simple. It makes the kits go a lot faster versus having to make sure your glue bottle's not clogged, or make sure you have enough glue in there, or it's not dried up, or you have to cut off a cap, or it's just super simple. Just peel it and place. And for the most part, you can actually kind of just drop it into place and it doesn't adhere. So you could move it around a little bit to make sure you have the placement right. And then you'll see on most of the pieces, I'll push down when it's in the place that I want it. That way it's going to stick. As you see, just like on that bat, I just kind of dropped it down and I moved it down a little bit lower. And then for brims like that, I just use my finger to kind of feel if it's in line with the other pieces of the wood. And you guys, once the pieces are all painted, oh, there's my head. Thank goodness no grays were showing. But once the pieces are all painted, it's such a quick process to put together. Now here you'll see you want to make sure you leave the bottom tab exposed so that she gets it. You use that to put in the stand like I just showed you there. And that's it. She's all finished.